Would you like to accelerate your career and reach your full potential in just minutes a day? Welcome to the LEADx Show with New York Times best-selling author and Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Kevin Kruse.
Hey guys, Kevin Kruse here. Welcome to the LEADx Leadership Show, where we help you to stand out and to get ahead at work. Now, as you know, we like to switch things up here, keep it interesting, and to continue that tradition, today on the podcast, instead of me interviewing an expert guest, we're going to have the guest deep dive into their topic. You see, you'll be hearing audio from a LEADx webinar. Now, of course, there are dozens of great webinars on leadership, management, communication, productivity, and more, all archived in the LEADx app. Just visit leadx.org for more information about our webinar archive. So, enough on the setup, enough background information. Here is Vanya Mathis to introduce our guest and to hand it over to them. Enjoy.
Welcome to Strategic Doing, 10 skills you need for agile leadership. Complex changes are all around us. Today's leaders need to understand how to design and guide complex collaborations to accelerate innovation and change. This webinar will introduce you to the new disciplines of agile strategy and collaborative leadership and show you how to navigate an unpredictable future through the fast and agile development of complex collaborations using a set of 10 practical skills. Your host today directs the Agile Strategy Lab at Purdue University. He pioneered the development of a new approach to strategy and complex collaboration in open, loosely connected networks. His work won the first Arthur D. Little Award presented by the American Economic Development Council. Please welcome Ed Morrison.
Hi, this is Ed Morrison from the Purdue Agile Strategy Lab. I'm director of the lab, and I want to spend a little bit of time with you today introducing you to some of the work that we do in the lab and a new book that we've released that summarizes a lot of the work that we've done over the last 15 years or so. I came to the Purdue Agile Strategy Lab in 2005 after I'd had a career in consulting, both in corporations and working with regions, focused on really complex challenges. And what I learned was that these complex challenges require collaboration, that collaboration emerges out of conversation, and that these conversations actually have an underlying structure and trajectory. And if we could learn how to design and guide these conversations, we could become a lot more productive in developing collaborations. So the essence of this work is really captured in a new book that we've released called Strategic Doing, 10 Skills for Agile Leadership. We introduce you to 10 skills, and we'll go through that in this webinar and give you some background as to how these skills emerged and what you're going to learn from the book if you choose to go down this path. But let me first start to focus a little bit on what it is that we do in the lab. What are the kinds of challenges that we face? So here's one of the questions that came to us. How can we transform engineering education at 50 universities? How can we create an environment that encourages engineers to understand innovation and entrepreneurship much more deeply in their undergraduate education? But how can we do that across 50 universities? Well, here's another challenge we've had. How do we make space research more productive? Specifically, how do we make the life sciences within NASA more collaborative? Again, a complex challenge that NASA has faced. And here's another one. How do we develop a roadmap for condition-based maintenance or predictive maintenance across an entire destroyer fleet? How do we introduce this new approach to maintenance in order to make our investments in our defense far more productive? And for the last 7 or 8 years, we've been focused on this challenge up in Flint. Civic leaders came to us with a challenge. How do we reduce teenage homicides in Flint? Of course, the water crisis hit, and the challenge was, how do we adjust to the fact that we don't have clean, safe water to drink? All of these are complex, tangled, wicked challenges, and we introduce these to you in the book as examples of the type of challenges that we as leaders are facing. And we also give you the backstory of how this work developed. It really started in 1993 when I was a consultant working with the city of Oklahoma City. And the challenge was, how do we get out of an economic doldrum that was created by bank failures and oil price collapses? And what could we do to transform the Oklahoma City economy? Well, in fact, we were able to transform the Oklahoma City economy. And again, we'll show you how we did that in the context of introducing you to these 10 skills of collaborative leadership. But before we do that, let me go back and start to talk about a little bit, take you in a helicopter, go up about 10,000 feet and talk to you a little bit about what are the challenges that we're facing? Why are all these complex challenges all of a sudden dropping on our doorstep? Well, if we think about this in terms of S-curves or growth curves, we can see quite clearly that part of the challenge is that we've had an enormously successful industrial economy that started in about 1870, but started peaking in about 1970. I'm from Cleveland. I grew up there, and I saw the steel mills closing down. So I'm very aware of the fact that not everything lasts forever. We have economies that are constantly shifting. And again, we've seen a new economy starting to emerge around our grandchildren's networks. Everybody's seen a 4-year-old typing on a thumb typing on an iPad, and we understand that part of the challenge now is that we're moving. The industrial structure of our country is moving from hierarchies to networks. So let's talk a little bit more about what hierarchies are and why they're important and what's happened to them. Well, a hierarchy is really designed for efficient top-down control. The top leadership of a hierarchy does all of the thinking, and the people underneath the hierarchy, underneath the top leadership, does all the doing. And so it's a very efficient way to move and align people. The problem, of course, is that these hierarchies are starting to break down. They're breaking down all over the place. We've seen this again with steel, with autos, our basic industries, but increasingly we're starting to see this with our government and our civic organizations as well. Well, what's replacing hierarchies? And of course, what's replacing hierarchies are networks. Networks are open, complex living systems. And these are a different type of industrial organization that we face, which is how do we manage these open systems? Well, as an example of these open systems, let's take the first iPod. Apple's first iPod was not a product of Apple so much as it was a product of a network that Apple designed and guided. So moving toward collaboration, moving toward networks, moving toward platforms, this is a phenomenon that's been happening in our industrial organization for the last 15 or 20 years. But now the question now comes up to how do we design and guide open, loosely joined networks? The old way in which we manage strategy, manage work, was through command and control. But command and control does not work in open, loosely connected networks where really nobody can tell anybody what to do. So we've got to come up with a new approach to strategy. And that's effectively what we've done in our book and in our work over the last 15 years. We've developed a new approach to strategy that really focuses on designing and guiding collaborations and conversations that lead to those collaborations. And so we'll go into that in just a minute. But before we do, I want to thank all the people who have joined us in this work over the last 15 years and have propelled this work to the top of the new release lists in Amazon. And we're quite excited about that. But I wanted to take a moment and thank the people that have helped us all over the world now working on strategic doing. So what is strategic doing? Well, we're familiar with the idea of strategic planning. It's a linear process in which we do a lot of analysis, gather a lot of facts, and hopefully we can execute. But of course, execution with strategic plans has been a very difficult process. So strategic planning, in summary, is long, it's linear, it's pretty expensive, but what's the alternative? The alternative is strategic doing, which is a lean process. It's a fast process. It's an agile process, but it's a disciplined process. It's also a disciplined process that focuses on guiding collaborations and aligning and linking and leveraging assets across the organization and with partners outside the organization. So it's a strategy discipline that is specifically designed for open, loosely connected networks. And in the book, you'll learn about how I abandoned the old strategic planning model when I was confronted with the complex challenges of Oklahoma City, and we started experimenting with a new approach to strategy that was much more focused on experimentation, much more focused on identifying initiatives that could replicate, could scale, could be sustained, and transforming the economy by focusing on those types of initiatives and those types of collaborative investments. So strategic doing, when we came to Purdue in 2005, I came to Purdue in order to learn how to teach strategic doing. And what we've developed over the last 15 years is an open source operating system that really helps accelerate complex collaboration, open innovation, and ecosystems. It's a new type of discipline. And we are now making this available through a growing global network of colleges and universities that teach strategic doing. So we teach strategic doing once a month somewhere in the world, and we teach it in the US, Canada, Europe, and Australia. So we see this as an opportunity to provide executives and our students with a new set of skills that they can develop in order to guide these complex conversations. So what's really the bottom line here? The bottom line is that the future is about complex ways of thinking, complex ways of doing. Clearly, the idea that we can simply capture all of the challenges that we have and address all these challenges within the context of a single organization is increasingly less true, and so that we need to build collaborations both within and across our organizations. It's about collaboration. The future is about collaboration and our collective capacity to innovate. It's about creating this shared value, And this shared value emerges when we have deep, focused conversations. As I started out, I said, this webinar, I indicated that conversations that lead to shared value have an underlying structure and have an underlying trajectory. And what the 10 skills of Agile leadership introduce you to is this underlying structure and trajectory, and the skills you need in order to design and guide these conversations. So that managing collaborative conversations takes these 10 skills, and you can practice these 10 skills and you can master these 10 skills. But there's an important caveat here. No one is good at all 10 skills, which is one of the reasons why if you're taking on a complex challenge, you need a team, a cognitively diverse team. And so part of the introduction to strategic doing that we provided to you in this book indicates what skills that you need to build a collaborative transformation. What are the skills you need to bring together in a team? And as you start to think about where your particular strengths are, you can start to also think about people in your team, in your organization that have skills that complement yours. I'd like to end this with a quote. Interestingly, you'll hear or see in the book a foreword by Yo-Yo Ma. Yo-Yo Ma is an extraordinary individual, and we met last August, about 4 or 5 months before the release of the book. And Yo-Yo went through one of our strategic doing workshops. And in his foreword to the book, he explains a little bit of our work together. But he says something that's meaningful to us and meaningful to everyone who's worked on strategic doing over the last 15 years or so, which is strategic doing is precisely what we need at this moment. In a fast-changing world filled with disruption, with institutions not equipped to absorb or deal with the pace of change, here is a way of thinking and acting Here's an agile strategy that makes collaboration take place at the necessary speed for social good. And isn't that what we all want? We want to find new ways to collaborate. Thankfully, at Purdue University, we've had the opportunity to develop strategic doing and test strategic doing with a whole range of different clients and case studies and organizations and examples. And we're very, very pleased that now we can share this with you in the book. So I want to thank you right now for taking the time to listen to our introduction to strategic doing, and hope I can see you some way down the trail as you develop your skills at collaboration and strategy.
Friends, if you like this episode of the LEADx Leadership Podcast, please take a minute, leave a rating on iTunes or Stitcher. Ratings are invaluable for attracting new listeners. And I like to convert those listeners into leaders because, I'm on a mission to spark 100 million leaders in the next 10 years. And if you want to become the boss everyone fights to work for and nobody wants to leave, check out the LEADx platform with Coach Amanda at leadx.org. And if you have 10 or more managers who could use some binge-worthy training, send me an email at info@leadx.org, LEADx.org, and we'll talk about getting you set up with a totally free pilot for those managers. See if they like it. If they don't, that's fine. We go away. Part as friends. But if they love it, you've just found yourself a new resource for them. Remember, leadership is influence. You're always leading. How are you going to lead today?